Hello, everyone. My name is Gary Gomes. I'm here to talk to you about astrology in general, Vedic astrology in particular. We'll have a brief touch on Chinese astrology today, as we're fully into the year of the tiger. And I just wanted to give you a little bit of background on myself. You can contact me for readings or for uh, lessons at 508-525-0001. I've been a practicing Vedic astrologer for over 30 years now, and I've also been the president of the Council of Vedic Astrology. I've written articles. I'm in the process of writing a book, and I'm also been a lecturer and teacher at various astrological institutions, including Kepler College and the American College of Vedic Astrology. I'm also a priest of the Kriya Yoga lineage, a Swami of the Kriya Yoga lineage, and I also possess a doctoral degree in education. So, and also I do instruction in meditation, Reiki, and tarot, if anyone's interested in those disciplines. So I just wanted to give you a brief background, a brief resume about myself. I've also been recognized by various Indian astrological organizations, including Indian Council of Astrological Sciences and Vidya Bhavan, which is considered one of the most respected learning institutions in India. Before I get too full of myself, everyone is always learning, everyone is always growing, everyone is always expanding their knowledge base. So I don't think I have all the answers, but I do. But I have helped a few people along the way. Let's get first of all into the Chinese New Year. As I said last week, the year of the tiger is really important. It's a really important year. This previous year was essentially a very static year. It was very, it was a very lower risk kind of a year. And this is the water tiger. So the water tiger is more emotional, more of a risk taker. The only problem is for certain signs, and you can look up your astrological signs in the Chinese zodiac by seeing what year you were born. So there's a certain sequence. So dragon is considered to be the lead of the zodiac. Snake is the second sign, etc., etc. So essentially, these signs are annual signs. That's not all of Chinese astrology. There's a large conflict this year with Jupiter in Chinese astrology, with the Grand Duke Jupiter for many signs in astrology, which means that it is a year to take on big projects. It is a year in which you can actually start doing large events, but don't expect to do it unopposed. If you're willing to fight, if you're willing to put yourself out there and fight for what you believe in, you'll be victorious. So if we're looking at the various signs of the zodiac, starting with dragon will have potential for affairs, potential for relationships. If it's not in a long-term relationship, it will also have potential for big projects during the year. But it has to be careful because it will seem like it has opponents on all sides. Snake will have a chance to actually move forward start to do a lot of the projects he's wanted to do for a long time. But it will be more cunning. It will be more selective. I think one of the challenges for the snake is not to be too angry this year, because a lot of the energy this year is emotional energy, because it's a water year, and that can be, the snake is usually smarter than that, but I think that's one of the risks uh, for the let me just see now. So generally a lucky year for those two signs. Um, let me just see now. I'm just going, um, just looking at my notes. My apologies. So going in sequence, um, the horse is going to feel a little bit stressed out, a little bit emotionally tethered. It's going to want to start new activities, but the horse, as 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 an animal sign, tends to like a little bit of predictability. The goat, which is the year after that, is going to be really upset with with uh, with things changing a lot, and with a lot of the emotional energy this year. If it can learn to keep its counsel, then the next year will be much better for it. The horse year will be much better for it, which is kind of, I'm sorry, the snake year will, I'm sorry, the rabbit year will be much better for it, but it's it's basically not really a happy year for the goat. The monkey's very enthusiastic as a sign, so it'll like the changes in energy. It'll like the emotional upsets. It won't like the fights, because there will be a lot of fighting this year. And the rooster, uh, but it will have a chance to make a lot of changes, and also chances to be clever and think its way out of problems, and get new solutions. Rooster is a very proud sign. It won't like attacks on authority, but basically it'll be a good year for the rooster, especially if the rooster wants to assert itself. The dog is another sign which essentially tends to like a certain amount of regularity, a certain amount of consistency. And I think one of the things about the dog is going to feel challenged because it won't know with whom it can side this year. It'll feel very confused. It'll feel very challenged to make allies. The pig, um, will have an interesting year because a lot of the things it had banked on. So the pig likes security overall as a sign, and basically a lot of that security will be threatened or screwed up a little bit this year. The rat will actually have a good year. The rat will benefit, like the monkey, will benefit from people's changes of temperament and mood. Because, and it can fit into small places, it can fit into crevices and take advantage. The ox, again, will find it kind of difficult. The ox, like the pig, likes a bit of predictability. We've been in an ox year this year, and a lot of folks who are heavily, they want a return to normalcy or a return to slowness. They're not going to find that happening this year. This will be kind of a dramatic year. Tigers. So this is your year. This is supposed to be a really good year. It's problematic because tigers are, this is part of a cycle which is like a rebirth cycle. So in Indian astrology, when your rising sign matches that of your birth sign, it's said to be a challenging year. This is similar to that. So in an annual chart, so they have a system in Indian astrology called Varshapal, and Varshapal is essentially an annual return chart. And if we can think about it in certain terms, it's sort of like a rebirth chart. So basically, a lot of people feel like they're starting over if they're tigers, or they'll feel like they're being challenged about a lot of things they've taken for granted. It'll be a very emotional year for them. Things won't go, they won't seem quite as in control of their emotions as they normally are. And a lot of the impulses, a lot of the new ventures they want to take control of will seem a little bit beyond their reach. They'll have opponents, so they'll have to prove themselves all over again. It's not quite as dramatic as saying the person's going to have to be reborn or anything like that, but they'll have to prove themselves. They'll have to prove the merit of their argument more strongly. For the rabbit's going to essentially jump from project to project. It really won't find anything it can really hang its hat on, but it'll be introduced to some interesting opportunities and some interesting um, um, challenges. So overall, not a bad year for the rabbit, but it'll have trouble keeping focus. All right, so that's a quick summary, and I'll get to the summary of your astrological signs. I just want to share this screen for you just so you can see um, a little bit. And this is a copyrighted screen, so I apologize in advance to the person, but I will give it's from www.chinahighlights.com, travel guide Chinese zodiac. So I give credit. Oh, sorry about that. I give credit to the person, to the individual who set it up, and trying to get it to share. See now. Yeah. Oh, I'm on the wrong screen. No one. So you can kind of figure out your place. Oh, it's not showing. So let me see if I can. Can't pull it up again. See, I don't want to go to YouTube. Sorry, guys. Uh, these, so this is Tyler. Rabbit, snake, monkey, um, dog, horse, um, ox, and pig, and mouse or rat. Okay, and you can go to this website to actually figure out which year your sign is. And so I'll stop sharing that screen. Okay, and it's a different scene. It's Chinese Zodiac.org. What Chinese sign am I? And you can go there. Okay. But again, if you're interested in taking a chance, this is the year to try to do it. But don't expect it to be peaceful. Don't expect it to be easy. I think a lot of people, when they say uh, they're following their bliss or they're following their life pattern, don't realize that a lot of times that's a challenge for people. So I think one of the things to keep in mind is whenever you do something like this, um, there's a certain amount of risk involved, and it isn't people getting in your way. It's essentially um, just the nature of life. So let me see if I can get the chart up again. All right, so I'm going to pull up the Indian astrology chart again, and just recap for you folks. What the signs are, where the planets are, and just point out some pretty important things that have been happening over the past week. Basically, we have it's been kind of telling for a lot of people. A lot of people have contacted me about this, and basically, we have Sun and Saturn in almost exact conjunction. I don't know if you can see that, but they're around 20. The Sun is 22 degrees, 42 minutes. Saturn is 21 degrees. And Mercury just went direct, just started moving forward. So essentially what that means in plain English is you'll have a very strong push or a very strong sense of suppression or defeat or exhaustion on a lot of people's parts. You'll also have people taking what I would call very protective measures. So we had the thing happen with so we had several crises happen in communications over the past week when Mercury was in a sign with the Sun-Saturn conjunction, and it's also about a calling to account. So the first controversy, so there are at least 4 major issues that I've seen come up. The Neil Young, Joni Mitchell one is the one that's got everybody's attention because it's a big deal. But the Whoopi Goldberg, so essentially, they're all to greater or lesser extents showing either problems with media or controls being put on media individuals or people walking away or people facing challenges. So the first one is, at least in the United States, is happened with the Joe Rogan show being boycotted for misinformation by Joni Mitchell and excuse me, by Neil Young and Joni Mitchell. The second one, though, that occurred a little bit earlier in the week, was the Whoopi Goldberg controversial comment about race not being World War II and the Nazis not being about race. There was a third one, maybe it was, and Joe Rogan's comments, obviously, about race caused some problems too. And but there's also a third one, which is not really race, but about accountability, and that it was the head of CNN, Zucker, being forced to resign because he didn't disclose a personal relationship. And finally, although this is less prominent in the news, Facebook losing ground to TikTok. So that's less of an issue about control, but it's more of an issue about limitations being reached. So Facebook essentially was a king in the format it's in. And I think you're also going to see a lot more of this happening in the media over the next month or so. A lot of media giants facing challenges. And I think you're also going to see it over the next year. You're going to see a lot more competition developing in the media, a lot more. And I said this about it must have been around 3 or 4 years ago. Large media companies being held accountable for virtually everything they're saying. So it won't be just from things like censoring misinformation. It'll also be about things about coming from the other side, about people saying, well, you reported this incorrectly, and and what are you going to do about it? So I think you'll see a lot, what I would call a lot of correction in the media, especially over the next month, and also roughly about 2 months from now. And I'm not sure, in terms of politics, a lot of accountability, a lot of stress on accountability. And again, like I said, from all sides, the Sun-Saturn conjunction is significant because Saturn is essentially the most powerful planet in the chart right now, and it will be for the next couple of years. That's not going to change. Saturn's going to transit into Aquarius in April, but it'll give more weight to nonconformist ideas. Then it swings back into Capricorn in the summertime, and that'll give more weight to establishment ideas. Then in the fall, it'll swing back into Aquarius, and it'll swing more on the side of people who want reform or who want shifts or changes in government. So I think this is going to be a really interesting year. It sort of parallels the Tiger year in Chinese astrology, because you're going to see a lot of shifts in focus. Also, right now, one of the things, so a lot of these things happen right as that Sun-Saturn conjunction was occurring. And I think you'll just see this as like a theme over the next year, especially because it's happening really close to the Chinese New Year. And that's more connected. Also, just recently, Venus and Mars are very close together. That tends to fire up passions as well, not only sexual passions, but passions for justice and passions for doing the right thing. Now, again, this is neither left nor right. So people are going to be more inclined to speak their piece or to take action. The good thing is Mars is out of Mula, which is a destructive nakshatra. That was why we were seeing all these really nasty events like earthquakes and volcanoes over the past few months. And I think you're going to see some shift in that. So that's a good thing. But but I think you will still see continuing pressure on governments because they're both in a sign connected with governments, which is Sagittarius, higher knowledge, but also guidance. And you'll see more criticism, especially aimed at people who are in our courts or who are our judges. And I'm going to stop the share and pull it up again just because I don't trust the share to go through all the way. Okay. So it's also we have inflation for about another, at least another year. Okay. And there could be, based upon Saturn's transit in June, there could be a month, what I would call a 1/4 recession. So essentially, the recession was called in 2020 because it was so deep. It really didn't meet the standard definition of what causes a recession in the United States. But it was very deep and very sudden. So they said, well, we'll call it a recession because the technical term is it has to be 2/4 or more. But again, you couldn't really argue that wasn't a deep hit on the economy. It was very strong. Everybody felt it. The problem that you run into, and there's a new coronavirus variant sneaking around right now, another Omicron variant sneaking around right now. And I have a feeling that'll hit in the summertime. So it's just, that'll be the last of the hits, though. And I really don't think it's going to be all that serious. But again, it'll cause more governmental control. If I'm looking right now, you're seeing what's happening in Ottawa. You're seeing what's happening in various countries around the world that are getting sick of restrictions. Not every government is engaged in this, but there are quite a few. Yes. So I think that one of the things that we'll have to keep in mind is this feeling of being caged in is going to start to catch up to us this year. This year is a more emotional year than last year was. Jupiter's in Aquarius. There's more room for unconventional thinking. And Jupiter will be in Pisces, so there'll be more belonging for freedom or release come the summertime. So I think it's going to be a challenging summer overall. The next couple of weeks are going to be challenging. The next couple of months are going to be challenging. And I think you're also going to see some health issues hit President Biden when after April of this year, or a little bit before April of this year. So I think it'll be an interesting year we'll find ourselves in. It's not something I'm wishing upon anybody. I just think that's what's coming. For the rest of the world, again, more interest in change, more interest in trying to shake up systems. China's headed towards some economic problems. They may try to take over Taiwan, and Russia may try to take over parts of the Ukraine. I don't think those are going to be really major conflicts. I think they're unfortunate, but I don't think they're going to be major conflicts. And I don't see the United States really going full tilt and getting involved in a major war. I don't see any of the European countries doing that. And as a matter of fact, I think any invasions that China or Russia take will be difficult on the country they're attacking, but pretty a pretty low threshold of violence. So I think that's something to not to be grateful for, um, and I think economic sanctions could stop it, could stop both countries. But I'm a little bit, I don't necessarily believe that the will is there for that right now, especially with Saturn being in kind of a nether zone over the next few months. The other thing we want to look at is we want to look at where things are happening. And again, keep in mind, the world is not just the United States, Russia, and China. We do have, interestingly enough, we do have some problems and let me stop the share again and, and fire it up again. So I'm going to take off my glasses and so I can look a little bit more carefully. So we do have a Sun-Saturn line going over, oh, excuse me, we have a Mercury line going over Alaska, which is interesting. And I think what that indicates is transportation problems for Alaska. We have a Sun, Saturn, and Rahu line going right over the Hawaiian Islands. So I think you're going to see some trouble in the Hawaiian Islands, maybe some government protests. Maybe a desire to get the United States the heck away from Hawaii. And although they're part of the country, but and also some government protests again in Canada. You know, Canada still isn't showing signs of easing away, but it looks like it's in Western Canada and in Montreal. We have a Mars-Venus sign going over central Canada, down through Mexico, down through Baja California, and basically the Baja Peninsula. And basically that indicates to me some potential for domestic violence in this band of states from roughly from Montana down to New Mexico and Arizona. Also, there's a moon sign right here in Texas, or close to Texas. And so Texas will have some a slowing of its economy. There's a Mercury sign going over eastern Texas and Mexico, and that can indicate some problems with communications, and also with restrictions on communications in this part of the country. So from Michigan down to Texas, and there's a Rahu line running right through Michigan, all the way down through South Carolina, down into the Dominican Republic and Haiti, and it's intersected by a Sun-Saturn line. So we can expect some problems in the government, or some scandals emerging from the Dominican Republic and Haiti, and also from northern Colombia, down through Peru, down through Chile. Brazil has been having a share of problems over the past couple of years, and I think One of the things I want to say about Brazil is they'll still be in kind of a panic mode, but they'll be calming down a little bit, especially down in the southern part of Brazil. So they'll have a little panic um, right by the Amazon, but also um, it'll start to calm down just a little bit in Brazil. They'll start to be more less um, less upset. Some problems in the Azores and in Cape Verde, it looks like from the chart. Um, and this could indicate some civil unrest, but also some uh, flooding problems in those parts of the world. In England, Sun, Saturn, England, Ireland, through France, and through um, Libya and into Central Africa, all the way down through South Africa. More government restrictions, more problems with the government, essentially just trying to establish a lot of control there, or trying to keep, in fairness, trying to keep things stable, you know. So essentially, one person's outlook of government control is another individual's desire for stability, and I forgot to mention that. So that's going to hit New England as well. So those stable governments, those stable or restrictive governments, depending on your perspective, will be hitting New England uh, and Connecticut and Rhode Island too. The other thing we want to look at is we have a Saturn line running through really right around what used to be called South Africa um, and close to Mozambique and Angola, and this looks a little bit problematic for that part of the world. So I think you're going to see some government violence there. Also, some depression in Greece, um, and some panic in Greece, panic in Eastern Europe, especially concerning the economy. Denmark will largely be free of that kind of stuff, but they'll have a little bit of a panic. But all through Eastern Europe looks like there's going to be panic or like really, really bad weather. It comes close to Turkey, but Turkey has a Jupiter line. So again, Turkey can expect some kind of disruption, whether earthquakes or other weather problems, and also economic problems, but and maybe even an economic panic in Greece and Turkey. But again, Jupiter's heading over the country. It looks like there'll be some new solutions offered for that part of the world, and also down into Eastern Africa and into Morocco. I'm sorry, and into Madagascar. My apologies. The other lines which are problematic to me tend to run over India. India, there'll be shifts in government, there'll be changes in government, especially close to Delhi. And there'll also be a communication scandal uh, in towards the eastern part of the country, near Bengal, but not quite there. And Rahu passes through China and Vietnam. So essentially, we're going to see the Chinese economy in a bit of a, not in a free fall really, but just in real trouble. And that'll go through Indonesia as well. The Chinese have claimed they have less COVID deaths than the United States. I don't, uh, it stretches our credibility because the outbreak started there, number one. Number two, the Chinese government is not really forthcoming with its media. So that's not really that's not a prejudicial statement, that's just factual. So we really don't know how much they're suffering from COVID. We know in terms of production, they've been suffering a lot. And there is, so this Rahu line is kind of, this Rahu and Sun Saturn line down by Indonesia is significant. And again, really restrictive government policies in central China. Okay, so the Olympics are happening out there. It's not surprising. And some panic happening in South Korea and political scandal happening in South Korea and Japan. And finally, some potential for conflict in Borneo. Australia, not quite so much. And New Zealand is blessedly unscathed by a lot of what's happening right now. So they're fortunate. New Zealand's been really fortunate during the entire pandemic and during the world economic crisis. So let's go back to the main screen, and I'll talk about your individual signs. Excuse my big head. And by the way, I just want to say, if you're going to do anything over the next couple of days, it's a great time to do it. I'm actually doing this broadcast during one of the most auspicious days of the year. I wish I'd notified you last week, but the energy will be good for another few days. So whenever you see this, if you want to start something or you want to start any kind of a project, go for it, because it's really going to be, the results will be really quite good. Okay, so let me do this one more time. And I have to get out of that page. All right, so this will bring us back. Ooh, darn it. Yeah, I have to get. And basically, what we're seeing this week for Aries is there's a lot of separation from home, a lot of feeling of alienation from home. Still want more money, good financial gains, good luck, especially in romantic matters. But people's emotions may run high this week. But basically, a good week for Aries. Taurus, again, less problematic than it has been recently, but a lot of focus on work and some lack of feeling of self-confidence caused by both the Venus in the 8th house and the Sun-Saturn conjunction in this house. So some lack of confidence in pursuing goals. But basically good for work life, good for financial gains. For Gemini, relationship life is very active, very hot, very visceral right now. But there is some worry about it, and there are some increasing arguments. So, and the sign itself doesn't feel all that confident because Mercury is really weak right now. As over the next couple of months, it will regain in confidence. Work-wise, it's still doing pretty well, but they'll have a change of venue work-wise over the next week. Cancer has Sun and Saturn in the 7th house, so relationships will seem to be very burdensome, a lot of work. This is no change from last week. And communications will be very weak. So relationship partners will seem sullen or difficult to communicate with. And this will go on really until around the 15th of the month. But it'll actually continue pretty much for about another month, to be honest. And relationship life will get better around the 15th because Venus will be in that sign. But again, it'll still be tough just because of Saturn being in that chart, in that sign. It's really, so there'll be more emphasis on doing things together, but in terms of like feeling happy in the relationship or they'll feel comfortable, but they won't feel happy. But career-wise, Cancer has some obstacles. The planet of luck is in its eighth house, so it's doing well in research matters, in academic matters, but it's not doing that well, and it's also not doing that well in terms of competition. Sun, Leo has Jupiter in the seventh house, so again, a great time for increased opportunities. People with this sign will have increased relationship opportunities. Moon's in the eighth house, minimizing losses, and also Sri Lagna is in the second house, which is a good wealth-producing house. So that indicates more money coming its way, but again, slowly. It'll come over time, over the next few weeks. Venus and Mars, a lot of fighting at home. Moon is in the eighth house. We already spoke about that. That reduces losses and some fame or career through travel. Fame and career growth through travel. Virgo has Moon in the seventh house, so that gives change in relationship life, change in relationship partner. Relationship partner will seem to be a little bit of an opponent or adversarial. Saturn aspects the seventh house, so it'll give pauses and delays in relationship changes. And Venus and Mars, the sign will feel very passionately about things. It'll feel very aggressive. It'll feel very, very pushy over the next week or so. Over the next 2 weeks or so. Libra has Venus and Mars, so it really wants to grab for relationship life, like really strong. It's a really strong desire nature to the sign right now. K2's in the second house, so people aren't going to be taking it very seriously when it speaks. But that strong desire nature is definitely going to get what it wants. Sun and Saturn and Mercury are in the fourth house, indicate some delays in construction projects and home projects. Jupiter's in the fifth house. It'll indicate a lot of interest from relationship partners or from potential relationship partners. And Moon's in the sixth. Work will seem to be a struggle. It will seem to be like you have a lot of enemies. Rahu's in the eighth. Unexpected gains. For Scorpio has Venus and Mars in the second house. So again, this sign will seem very aggressive when it comes to going after money. It'll seem to be more interested in relationship life, more interested in maybe having affairs. Sun, Saturn, and Mercury are in the third house. So again, it has large gains of confidence this month and a certain certainty about its life direction. Jupiter's in the fourth house. That's actually good for it. It'll actually help out this sign in terms of communicating with people. Moon is in the fifth house. A slight change in luck and a slight improvement in luck for this sign. And Rahu's in the seventh house. So again, not a good public image, not a good relationship with relationship partners. Relationship partners will seem to be a little bit controlling. For Sagittarius, Venus and Mars are in the first house, so this gives what's called Mars affliction. And this sign will have a lot of interest in long-term relationships, but it'll be drawn to the wrong people. So I'd encourage you to wait for about another couple of months before, maybe even 3 months before I get involved in a relationship. Also, for those currently in relationships, they'll have a lot of fights or a lot of arguments. Mars aspects the moon, a lot of help from females. Jupiter's in the third house, so again, this strong desire not to offend or not to upset. Rahu in the sixth house, a lot of domestic issues, a lot of domestic squabbles, bad habits. For Capricorn, Sun, Saturn are in the first house. So this is kind of the dominant sign. Capricorn is kind of the dominant sign. So there's a lot of focus on investments, a lot of focus on the economy for this sign, and a lot of desire to command or dominate people. This will be less intense within the next week or so. this Saturn's essentially what they call combust. And when a planet's combust, the houses of career and innovation tend to get a little bit downtrodden. They tend to get a little bit weakened. And Saturn's also so Saturn's influencing, so the sun's influencing Saturn and Saturn's influencing the moon. So what does that mean in plain English? Well, basically, people don't feel confident and they're feeling a little bit depressed this week. So again, with Jupiter in the second house, there's a philosophical aspect to this combination. So this time we'll have a lot of money coming in, but it will feel insecure about that money. Rahu's in the fifth house. Love affairs will seem to be out of reach. And Venus is in the 12th house with Mars. There'll be a lot of focus on sexual relations and maybe affairs, but let's hope not. Jupiter's in Aquarius. Jupiter's in the first house in this sign, so this is basically good. It's the Lord of the 11th and the second house. In the first house, that's a wealth-producing combination, so that's very good for the sign. It's also a recognition-producing combination, which is also nice. The moon is in the second house, so a lot of times it'll say things that will cause opposition or enemies because that's the Lord of the sixth house. And it'll also probably go off its side or eat too much. Rahu is in the fourth house, so again, some frustration with home life. Venus is in the 11th house, basically along with the house of career with Lord Mars. So this is basically good for career, growth of career. But I think the thing of it is relationship life will seem to be kind of depressing or out of reach or foreign. It'll seem to be restricted, and Mercury, it'll give bad communications to people. So that communications problems are going to hang out for a couple of months. Moon is in the first house in Pisces. That's the fifth lord. That's basically a good placement and indicates a lot of luck to the sign over the next year, over the next month or so. But basically, over the next week or so, I'm sorry. And Rahu's in the third house. The Lord of the third is in the 10th, so there's a strong desire for career growth and career success. Ninth house has K2 in it, unexpected gains, unusual gains, but also blocks or obstructions from bosses. Sun, Saturn, and Mercury are in the 11th house, so it does give good potential for financial gains. And Jupiter's in the 12th house. Good for sleeping, good for meditating, good for in some cases, good for sexual relations. But Jupiter's more inclined to interest this sign in travel or getting away or relocating. So basically, this isn't a bad chart. We still have that cluster of planets in between Rahu and Ketu that won't end really until around, from my estimates, around May or so. So a lot of this feeling of being hemmed in, of not being able to take control of our lives, that'll be in place for a while, but that's also an illusion. You can't, the planets will always provide obstructions in some way, shape, or form. It's up to you what you do with your life. I can't stress out loudly enough or strongly enough. So if you want to take chances, take chances. Just be aware that they may not be greeted with positive responses until May, but you may be able to force the issue. You may be able to break out of this particular box. This box is not. And also, if you feel like you have a special mission in life, this is a time to really focus on that, because Kala Sarpa yogas do give people special mission. It compels people to do things. Okay. So if you feel like you have some kind of gift you have to offer the world or something like that, Now is a good time to act on that. Not wait until things get easier, because you'll be ready for the breaks when things get easier. Okay, I think I've said enough. Please like, subscribe, and share. Let me know what you'd like me to do. And I love you all. And namaste. Have a great week.